Welcome, Juergen.
Thank you. Thank you. Should I just jump right into it, or how do we want to go?
Well, easiest way would be if you can share your screen. Of course, I assume that you're going to start by presenting yourself, but I leave the floor to you, Juergen, as best as you want to utilize the time allocated.
So, Dancho, thank you for the audio introduction, the music, and all that. What I'm here to do today is to talk a little bit about content creation. Now, content creation, outreach messages, trying to get people to notice what it is that you're saying, is not easy. It's something that we're all trying to work on in one way or another. It's something that a lot of people have said there's good ways and bad ways of doing it. I've found that it's hard to do no matter who you are, for a lot of different reasons. What I'm going to try and show you today is something that I discovered, I want to say 15 years ago, something like that, and have been struggling and perfecting and playing with ever since. I'll do an introduction of the company as a part of this content creation piece, so please just bear with me for a few more minutes. The idea behind what we do is to try to get to the point where your content is noticed, your content is seen as something that people want to read. So let's start off with the first question. What is good content, actually? And I went to the web just to have a look and see what quality content is, and it's a fairly generic thing came up on Google, but I think it's a pretty decent way of describing it. It's relevant, it's engaging, it's useful for your audience, something that is well researched. So you've done your preparation, well presented, tailored to meet your audience's needs. There's a couple of points in here that are going to come up over the course of this 15 to 20 minute presentation. And the idea behind meeting your audience's needs, being useful for your audience, really can be in any form of communication. So it can be in an email, it can be as a presenter on stage, it can be in a one-to-one conversation, all the way up to potentially pitching your company in front of investors, asking your boss for a raise, fighting with your spouse over the remote control. It can be any kind of communication. So, in other words, what you're trying to do is you want to convince people of what you are writing or saying or speaking about. And the operative word here is the word convince. Now, if you manage to convince people, they might actually remember it, right? Because that's the true test of a, how shall I say, of convincing somebody, of trying to get somebody onto your side. So I thought about that for a little while, and I thought, well, actually, that sounds very familiar, because what it sounds like an elevator pitch. Now, an elevator pitch, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of literature. If you Google elevator pitch, you can get 3 billion hits, and they're all fairly good. However, the problem with elevators pitches is everybody knows what they are. Everybody knows that there are millions of them. Everybody knows to make it about them, meaning your audience, not yourself, right? Because if you're talking about yourself, well, you're not pitching in the sense of a true elevator pitch. You want to do benefits, not features, blah, blah, blah. It's really something that's very basic, very simple. Everybody should grasp. But I often ask myself, why are we so really awful at it? We really aren't very good at this. The idea behind pitching your company, your idea, to convince somebody, and doing it by talking about ourselves is, counterintuitive, but there's a good reason for it. So as an example, on slides, I can't tell you how many presentations I've seen. I've actually lost a client just over his insistence on using the slides about the factories that they have and the different chemical features that they use in their products and the logos of the clients, and saying, look, we need to make it less about you guys than about your customers. Emails, right? They take up so much space, they get DBR'd. I mean, it's people just see this massive email. I remember sitting with the CEO of a Fortune 500 company who happened to be my boss at the time, and an email came in from one of our colleagues with an idea, and he couldn't look at it on his smartphone. It was longer than the screen, and he said, "Look, I don't read mails that exceed the length of a screen." So there's always so much volume, so much stuff, so many messages that people want to put into these. They often overlook what gets people to be convinced. conversations. Just look at cocktail parties, look at pitches, look at investor meetings. People just want to just leave sometimes and just say, look, just stop. Tell me what it is you're actually going to tell me, but please don't carry on with this information. So what is good content? Yeah, it's content that immediately interests the reader. So I'm talking about not needing to read through oodles and oodles of information, listen to 45 minutes of stuff. It immediately interests the reader. So how do you do that? Well, according to Steve Jobs, and this is from a book that I found on his presentation secrets, his presentation secrets of Steve Jobs. It's about, I read it maybe 14, 15 years ago, and it's, as the title would suggest, reading. I'm a junkie for business books, I must admit. So I came across this, and there were some interesting points in there, though. And one of these was, according to Steve Jobs, you ask yourself 4 simple questions. This is how he prepares his elevator pitch. Now, the problem the first issue that we have sometimes is that we have to do this from the perspective of the audience. The questions are simple, though. What is it you do? What problem do you solve? How are you different? And why should I care? Okay, fairly simple. So the elevator pitch, standing in an elevator, finally with this person that you've been trying to reach, think of it as him or her asking you, what do you do? What problem do you solve? How are you different? And why should I care? Now, so far so good. This is something that an elevator pitch, as we know it from the web, from different books perhaps even, will seem very familiar. What I like about it, because what it forces you to do, it forces you to think about your audience, are the 2 words, problem and care. And if you think about it, you cannot answer the question what problem you solve if you don't know what the problems are. You have to think about the person that you're talking to or the person that you're writing to. You have to put yourself in the mind of your audience. And why should I care? Really care about what they're saying? That's a tricky question in itself. What does this person care about? What does this company or this prospect care about? What does the person I'm trying to convince care about? So I'm going to try and do this, and by this method, introduce what it is that we do here at vendosolutions in Vienna. So in the case of my company, vendosolutions, what do you do? So we help companies sell in the German-speaking markets. We're based in Vienna, and we are specifically, how shall I say, uniquely qualified to do this in the German-speaking markets. What problem do we solve? We speak German and therefore access a wide network of potential clients. German speakers enjoy being spoken to in their native tongue, and as you're probably well aware, German is not a language spoken very much outside of the region, and so therefore coming in a different language, most notably English, will not set you apart. So we speak German and can access this wide network of potential clients. How are we different? We're the only company in the region that closes deals. So we don't just consult, we actually close deals for our clients. And why should I care? Well, you, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer, will access the wide, lucrative DACH, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. It's an acronym for Germany, Austria, Switzerland. The lucrative DACH markets quickly and easily. Those would be my answers to those questions. So now you know a little bit about vendosolutions, and you've also seen this methodology at work. Now, so far so good. This is something that I think is fairly simple. Around the same time, there was a TED Talk that came out on a topic that utilized a methodology or a tool called the Golden Circle. Most of you will probably be aware of this. I'm just going to run you through it very quickly, because this Golden Circle was propagated by a gentleman named Simon Sinek in a I think it's the #2 TED Talk of all time now, where he goes through how companies communicate. And he says companies communicate a certain way because people communicate a certain way. When we went to school, we were taught to numbers, facts and figures, needed to recite certain things. We were not asked for reasoning. It was more about regurgitation. So what people and in the university it was the same thing, and these people graduate then into companies, and the companies communicate in the same way. So every company in the world can tell you what they do. Most companies can still tell you how they do it. But what very few companies even bother with is why they do it. And according to Simon Sinek, this why isn't to make money. This why is to give you a reason of why to get up in the morning, why to actually do the work, the intrinsic why. And so what companies will do is they'll go outside to inside, and this last step never gets done. he uses a plenty of examples. One of the examples is the IT industry, the computer production industry. And he says, just as an example, Dell computers, what we do is we build great computers. How we do it? Well, they have, megahertz and gigabyte and hard drives, and they're supercharged and they're whatever. Do you want to buy one? There really is no why. And in his speech, he says, what he has noticed is that people who motivate, people who convince, people who energize other people to do things start from the inside out. And so from the why to the how to the what. And in his example, it is Apple computers. So Apple computers, their why was around the lines of, I don't know about now, like I said, this was maybe 14, 15 years ago, was around the lines of everything that we do for people who want to be a little bit different, who swim against the stream, who are maybe even want to provoke. We do that by making our products unique. Even the unpacking is unique. Back then, the click wheel just came out. It just happens to be that we build PCs, telephones, and MP3 players. So the golden circle, and I've added a picture of Simon Sinek. He's a very accomplished speaker and thinker. Was around getting to the point where you lead the conversation with the why. Start with why. That is his book and his very successful series. So now let's go back to where we were before. We had Steve Jobs. What do you do? What problem do you solve? How are you different? Why should I care? And I thought to myself, I remember I was sitting in an airplane. I don't remember where I was going. And I thought, wait a minute, this is the exact same thing. What, how, why? Only what Steve Jobs did was he did it from top to bottom in preparation. It's actually pretty good because if you think about it, what I do or what you do is a lot easier to answer than why you should care about me. That takes thought, that takes preparation. So going from top to bottom is the perfect way to prepare this. Simon Sinek, on the other hand, allowed us to flip it on its head in a presentation. So what I started thinking about, and back then I was doing a lot of coaching and training as well, was let's see if we can't use this in real life. And I've been doing it ever since. And I've been doing it for copy. I've been doing it for helping people convince the people that they want to convince. As I said, if you're trying to get a raise from your boss, if you're trying to get a new job, if you're trying to get this potential clients to come on board, then this was something that we would work on. So I've taken that those words that I said about my company, and I flipped them on their heads. So working with vendosolutions will give you quick and easy access to the lucrative markets of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, the DACH region. Unlike many consultants who just strategize, we help you actually close deals there. Due to our native language capabilities, you will get better access to a wealth of potential clients. We are the only company that sells this way in the German-speaking markets. So simply by flipping this on its head, if you are somebody who is looking to enter those markets, it automatically becomes interesting. Now, there's another part which I'm not going to go into too much detail in this TED Talk, where he talks about who you need to activate. You can't get to the mass market without first getting those people who are maybe more innovative. If we're talking about electronic products, it's the people who buy every new phone version, TV that is on the market immediately because they have to have it. Well, it's the same way with clients who might come to me. I'm not going to get everybody. In fact, I just closed a deal at the beginning of the month where I spoke to the gentleman first at Slush in Helsinki, 2019. Sometimes it just takes time. But what you're trying to do is trying to get those customers that really resonate with your why and what you do and why it makes sense for them to come to you, and then trigger them to actively pursue doing business with you. So it's content that immediately interests the reader. We talked about that, right? Start with something big, something that grabs their attention, something that they care about. Okay, so that would be my advice. But of course, that advice is a little bit hollow because what could it be? How do you know? What is something big to the person across the table from me? What grabs their attention? What do they care about? And if you think about how people make decisions, how people become convinced, there's a lot of different ways of doing so. What I used to do in my trainings was I would ask the group of people who were sitting with me to tell me why they bought their shoes. And that elicited some snickers at first because, who cares why I bought my shoes? But in essence, you'd get 4 main buyer motives. You would get profit. You would get comfort, you'd get security, and you get prestige. Now, profit, the people who I'd ask, why'd you buy those shoes? They said, well, they were on sale, right? I can get the same pairs of shoes that I could have gotten 2 days ago, but now they cost 50% less. That is the profit motive. Translated into my company, into your company, into what we do, perhaps it's something where we come in at a better price than the competition. That's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is certainly a motive for buying your services. There is a flip side to this, though, and that is called earning money. So with me, you can earn money. Now, with the shoes, those were the very, how shall I say, the very posh shoes, the shoes that you could go into a bank, the board of a bank with, because if you buy the shoes that are cheap off the rack, you might not wear those if you have an important meeting, if you want people to understand that with you, their money is safe. So the profit motive, earn money, being a premium delivery person, a premium product, a premium solution, or saving money, being just a little bit less expensive. Comfort motive is simple. It's people sometimes buy because they just simply don't want to deal with it anymore, whatever it might be. Imagine a company that needs a new back-end system for their bookkeeping or accounting, and the one that they'd had in the past was so many different systems connected together that it was a major headache. Now they want something that is not a headache anymore. So that is the comfort motive. We will handle everything for you, Mr. and Mrs. Client. Don't worry about it at all. Security, we know what we're doing. A lot of pitches, people are good at this because they'll say, we went to this school, we have these and these clients, we know what we're doing. We've been doing it for 30 years. For me, it's the experience that I have in the market, for instance. So that's a fairly simple motive, but one that is very powerful. And then there's prestige. Now, prestige comes in two forms. The prestige slide is the one with all the logos. The prestige slide is, however, also one that makes the company that is presenting unique. So if I say prestige, what would a prestige motive be for a client of mine? Well, I could say somebody in the companies that you respect also are clients of ours. That would be one form of this group dynamic. I want to be a part of the group that works together with vendosolutions. Or I could say, we are uniquely positioned to help you with your sales because we are one of a kind in the market that we're in. Now, what is our job is to find the hidden motive. And the hidden motive is the one that you don't see, because if you walk into somebody's office, if you do research on a company, if you do research on a person, selling to a corporate is different than selling to a startup. Selling to the chief financial officer will take different buyer's motives than selling to the chief marketing officer, perhaps. The way to do that is then to adapt your content to the people you know that are either in the room, to know your own company in a way that you can list the profit, comfort, security, and prestige motives in the language of your company, and then use that in the meeting or in the correspondence. I'll give you one last example before I hand back over to Dancho. I was tasked with selling a product some years ago into a wide variety of industries across the German-speaking countries. And so what I did was that this relatively generic product needed to find the motive for each of these industries. And I had a tech company motive, I had a luxury company motive, I had a financial technology or financial services company motive, et cetera, et cetera. And I would write the email, the copy, with a generic introduction, a very specific middle part, and a generic exit. That specific middle part was then tailored to the company I was writing to. Now, I remember one time I was writing to a gentleman in a German automotive company, so I took out the technology bit. And then I looked at him on LinkedIn, or Zing, I don't remember, and I saw a picture of a very long brown hair held back by sunglasses, put it with his elbow out on the door of a red sports car is what it looked like. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go with the luxury text for this guy, just because. I don't know the guy, never met him before, but sometimes you make these judgments based on the information you have. And finding the motive takes a lot of preparation, and sometimes it just takes gut feel. So what I wanted to show you was to make your content as individual as possible, Go down to the point where you understand who the person is that you're talking to, or who the group of people are that you're talking to, and what motivates them, and then go and use this methodology. So that's what we do. We're based in Vienna. Feel free to contact me at any time. I have the two books that I've been referencing today here on the screen. If you have any questions, I guess, Gunther, the time would be now. Is that right?
Yes, yes, I'm here. Perfect, Juergen. You're spot on with the timing.
That's good, because my timer didn't work and I had no idea.
Yeah, I actually got the introduction slightly faster, but that's why we have the question section. Let me look at some of the questions that were raised. I have one specific question, Juergen, for you. In terms of bookkeeping and accounting, it is easy to say, I want everything as total solution. But when it comes to budget, they downgrade requirement. So the question comes is how to make them see as an investment and not as an expense.
Yeah, I mean, when you're the buying and selling interaction is always fun, right? I mean, me being on the sales side for the past 30 years, I've seen that side more than my share, but the job of a salesperson is to hold up the total value of a product. And the job of a purchasing person is to break down that value into its individual bits and pieces to reduce the price. Every time that happens, and every time individual pieces get taken out, that's what the buyer is doing. They're playing a game. They're doing what they're hired to do, which is save money on the purchase. The value of your product, why they should care, the problem that you solve, and how you're different at solving that problem is where you need to look. Now, there's no generic answer for every solution, of course, but in general, solutions that consist of various parts interact with one another. Great example, I have a software that we're working together with now that is more expensive than the competition, but has more features. The funny thing is, the people compare the prices and say you're far too expensive, not realizing that they spend money on those other features with other companies. So in the sum, it turns out to be maybe not cheaper, but not as much as expensive as originally thought. As a salesperson, what you are tasked to do is keep up the value of that product that you're selling, the solution that you're selling. And the buyer is doing the opposite. It's dancing. It's a game. There's no hard feelings. There's no, how shall I say, right or wrong. What you try to do is you try to reiterate the total value of the product. That's what sales is, making sure that they understand where the value comes in for you.
Got it. So putting emphasis on the value can overcome the budgeting obstacles, if I understand it correct.
Yes.
Another question was that when looking at the motives that you've sent, the profit, the comfort, the security, and the prestige, from content perspective, which one is the most influential to convince people?
Almost impossible to say, but we are in a business world and the profit motive will always reign supreme to a little bit. It just is. If you can make somebody understand that if they take your product down the line, their profit margins will increase, their revenue will increase, or their whatever it might be will increase, then you're going to be in a good position. Convincing somebody that you're cheaper than the competition has its edges and its pitfalls. So if I had to pick one that came up most often, it would be the profit motive. Again, finding that hidden motive, finding the second motive, maybe even the third, doesn't mean you should fire off motives like a machine gun, but be prepared to use your solution in the context of profit, comfort, security, prestige, and then find the one that resonates with the person across the table from you.
Got it. Thanks, Juergen. I have one more question. When you're utilizing the motives, how would you apply them on a different sales channels like cold calling, like email, like LinkedIn? Maybe you can give an example how they can be actually structured on different sales channels.
Honestly, sales isn't that hard. Let me rephrase that. Sales isn't that complex. It's not easy, but it's not terribly complex. Getting somebody who is a perfect client for you, who has a LinkedIn presence, an email address, and an office, if you start saying different things over LinkedIn than you're doing in person and over an email, you're hurting yourself anyways. I don't really see too much of a difference. There's going to be reason to compact it for LinkedIn. You'll have more of a chance to elaborate in a face-to-face meeting and not as much in an email. But starting with what you think this person, I mean, I start my sales conversations pretty much with the same sentence every time. I've been thinking about what you guys represent, who you are, and I think I've come up with some ideas for you. And then I launch into my pitch. Honestly, nowadays in the day, and it's been like this for a while, salespeople, and I count myself among them, are hurried, are easy to forget about the benefits to the other person. They fall into the trap of talking about what we do and what my company does and what the product does. It's just human nature, right? Just like Simon Sinek said, we teach this what to kids, and they become adults and they become chief marketing officers. It's something that is easy to do, so we fall into that trap. The idea is that you take yourself away from that, pair, and think about the other person. And I know that's hard, and I know that's time consuming, and I know that's terrible. But if you do it, and that's why this methodology speaks to me personally, why I've used it so many times, it will keep you on that track of thinking about the other person first. And then that sentence becomes genuine. And I saw there was something just popped up on my screen. I should repeat.
Yeah, I'm keeping it here. Can you also repeat the first sentence that you used when you're approaching prospects? Because
yeah, sure. No, it's just something along the lines of I've given some thought to your company, or I've been thinking about what you guys said on your blog post, or I understand the industry that you work in because I've worked with this in this company. For you, what I think might be just to show that relevance, so that I've been taking some time to think about you, is something that people don't get to hear. And everybody likes being thought about, and keep it. This is just me. That's just how I would do it. I'm not saying that's how you should do it, or anybody on this call, but make the person across the table focus on the person across the table.
So no, but I find it really relevant because as most of salespeople is like, hi, my name is Juergen, I'm a founder of, and we do this. And your angle is like, you know what? Before I go to bed last night, I was thinking about your business. And they were like, really? And then you have an open invitation.
You need to be careful if it's a lady, but yes.
Perfect, Juergen. I just had two very simple questions. Between the Steve Jobs and the Simon Sinek, which one do you like more?
Honestly, the Steve Jobs is the setup for the Simon Sinek, and I don't think Steve Jobs likes hearing about that if he were alive today. But Steve Jobs keeps you honest with this methodology, and Simon Sinek helps you get creative with his methodology, and I like the combination.
So actually the synergy between both of them gets the best results.
Yeah,
got it?
I remember sitting on that plane, we were landing, and I was going to get up because I was so excited. I just figured out that this was going to work together. So.
Nice. And the last question was that when it comes to the content, I mean, these motives for buying, can it also be applied for social posting, like posting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere I'm talking about convincing somebody. And if you're trying to convince somebody with your social post on LinkedIn, try the methodology.
Got it. Well, Juergen, thank you very much for your input. I think that it was really valuable, and I really hope that people were taking notes and some insight and planning how they can actually apply this.
Very good. I look forward to hearing from them.